In the deepest part of winter, when the fields are hard as stone and the nights feel endless, one thing matters more than gold: heat. Not comfort, survival. And in the Celtic imagination, heat wasn't just physical. It was the fire in the forge that turns raw metal into a blade, the fire in the hearth that keeps a family alive, and the fire in the mind that turns silence into poetry. That's where Brigid enters. Because Brigid isn't one simple goddess with one simple job. She is a living symbol of the moments when life transforms. When something cold becomes warm, when something broken becomes whole, when something ordinary becomes inspired. And then there's the mystery. How did a goddess of flame and craft become, at least in memory, one of Ireland's most beloved saints? Tonight we follow the sparks. Brigid, also spelled Bridget, Brigid, and sometimes Bride, is one of the most enduring figures in Celtic tradition. In this story, you'll discover why Brigid is tied to poetry and inspiration, how she became linked to healing and sacred wells, why her name is spoken beside the forge and the anvil, and how her legend bends across time toward a festival called Imbolc, and a question that still sparks debate: goddess or saint? Let's begin where all good myths begin, in the dark. The many names of Brigid. Brigid's name travels the way fire does, from one hearth to another, changing shape as it goes but never losing its power. You'll see her written as Brigid, Bridget, Brigid, sometimes Bride, variations shaped by language, region, and time. And while scholars debate the precise roots, the meaning is often understood as something like high or exalted. But Brigid isn't exalted in the distant, unreachable way of a star. She's exalted like a flame in the hand, close enough to warm you, close enough to burn. Because in the world that shaped these myths, fire was not decoration, it was the boundary between life and death. A household without a hearth was a household in danger. A village without skilled hands, without craft, without healing, without song, was a village that could not endure. Brigid belongs to endurance, and to the forces that make endurance possible. Brigid's three great domains. If you want to understand Brigid, imagine three fires burning in the same night. Each fire looks different. Each fire serves a different need. But all of them change what they touch. The first flame is the most mysterious. The flame of poetry and inspiration. Brigid is remembered as a patron of poets, bards, and the creative voice itself. In Celtic tradition, words were not merely entertainment. A poem could preserve history. A song could carry law. A story could hold a people together. And inspiration, true inspiration, was treated like something that arrives from beyond you, like a spark landing in dry grass. The second flame is gentler, but no less powerful. The flame of healing and sacred wells. Brigid is also tied to healing, to restoration, to the places where the world seems thin and holy, especially springs and wells. Water cleans. Water restores. Water returns life to what has been scorched. And in many traditions, sacred wells are not simply places to drink. They are places to ask, to offer, to remember. Then comes the third flame. The flame of the forge. Brigid is linked to smithcraft, the work of shaping metal, of making tools, of turning raw material into something that can protect a community. A smith doesn't just create objects. A smith creates change. Because the forge is a miracle you can hear, the roar of fire, the ring of hammer, the moment where something rigid becomes workable. Brigid's power is not passive. It is the power of transformation. Pick your flame. If Brigid came to you tonight, which would she bring? The fire in your mind, inspiration? The cool water of healing? Or the blazing forge of craft, the discipline that changes you through work? Hold that answer. Because those three flames meet in one powerful moment of the year, when winter loosens its grip and the world dares to breathe again. That moment is called Imbolc. Imbolc, the season of Brigid. Imbolc arrives when the darkness is still heavy, but not hopeless. It's early February, when winter hasn't ended but the turning has begun. The days stretch, slowly. The air shifts. The lamb still sleeps, but it sleeps more lightly. Imbolc is a festival of returning light, of purification, of renewal, of the first promise that spring is real. And Brigid belongs here because she is the first warmth. Not the blazing heat of summer, the fragile, stubborn heat that survives in a candle. It's the time when people would look at the world and ask, will the lambs be born healthy? Will the fields recover? Will the home remain safe? In that uncertainty, Brigid becomes a presence you can feel. The fire that says, not yet, but soon. And when a myth becomes tied to a season, it becomes tied to life itself, because seasons repeat. That's why Brigid doesn't stay locked in ancient texts. She returns, again and again. Symbols and folk practices. Where Brigid's name is spoken, symbols often follow simple objects that carry deep meaning. One of the most recognizable is Brigid's cross, a woven shape made from reeds or straw, traditionally hung in the home as a sign of protection. It's not a symbol of distant mythology. It's a symbol meant to live with you. And then there are traditions connected to cloth, stories of Brigid's cloak, or a piece of fabric left out to receive blessing. These practices vary by region and time, and they often sit at the crossroads between older belief and later Christian custom. But whether the symbol is straw or cloth, the idea is the same. Brigid protects what is vulnerable: the home, the family, the turning year. Then there are the holy wells, places where people come not just to drink, but to ask for healing, to leave offerings, to circle the water in prayer. A well is the opposite of a forge. The forge burns away weakness. The well restores what's been burned. And between them, the hearth. Because the hearth is the everyday miracle, the point where myth becomes habit, and habit becomes survival. If you're starting to feel it now, that's the secret of Brigid. She is not a goddess locked in the sky. She is a goddess built into life. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. How did Brigid walk from pagan myth into Christian memory? Goddess to saint, the great transformation. There is a Brigid in Irish Christian tradition too. Saint Brigid of Kildare, a figure associated with generosity, miracles, and a sacred flame that, in some accounts, was tended for centuries. And here the story becomes complicated. Because when cultures change, they don't always erase what came before. Sometimes they blend it. Sometimes they rename it. Sometimes they carry it forward in a new form. This process, often called syncretism, isn't unique to Ireland. It happens wherever a new faith arrives and meets older roots already deep in the soil. So the question becomes, was Saint Brigid built on the memory of the goddess Brigid? Some argue yes, pointing to shared symbols, flame, protection, wells, the timing around Imbolc. Others emphasize the importance of treating them as distinct, a saint with her own historical tradition, and a goddess with an older mythic identity. And the truth may be this: even if they are not the same in a simple way, they share the same shape. A shape that people needed. A protector. A bringer of warmth. A figure of compassion and craft. A sacred fire that refuses to go out. Because sometimes a goddess doesn't disappear. Sometimes she changes her clothes. Myth versus memory. Here's the thing about myths. They aren't meant to be facts on a timeline. They are meant to be truths you can live inside. Myth is memory with a heartbeat. And when a story keeps feeding a community, when it keeps warming the cold parts of life, it survives. Even if the names change. Even if the temples become churches. Even if the old songs become new prayers. Brigid survives because she is useful in the deepest sense. She teaches transformation. And transformation is always needed. Brigid's meaning today. Brigid's world had smiths and bards and sacred wells. Ours has deadlines, anxiety, fractured attention, and lives that can feel like they're always running out of warmth. But Brigid still speaks, because her symbols are timeless. If you need the flame of poetry, she is the reminder that inspiration is not a luxury. It's a kind of survival. The mind needs beauty the way the body needs heat. If you need the flame of healing, she is the reminder that restoration is not weakness. It's wisdom. You cannot pour from an empty vessel, so you return to the well. And if you need the flame of the forge, Brigid is the reminder that craft changes you. Discipline isn't punishment, it's transformation you can choose. And maybe that's why Imbolc still resonates even now. Because who doesn't need a moment in the year to say, "The dark has been long enough. The light is returning. I am allowed to begin again." A modern Imbolc challenge. Here's a simple challenge, something you can do in one day. Choose one flame. If you choose poetry, write one page. Not perfect, just honest. If you choose healing, do one act of repair. Rest, water, reach out, forgive, or finally make that appointment. If you choose forge, practice one skill for 30 minutes. No distractions, no excuses. Then, when you're done, light a candle, if that's safe for you, and let it burn for a minute. Not as superstition, as a reminder that you can bring warmth back into your own life. Brigid is the sacred fire that warms the home, powers the forge, and lights the mind. She is the moment winter begins to loosen. She is the promise that what's frozen can move again, what's broken can mend, what's silent can sing. And whether you meet her as a goddess of the old stories or as a saint in later memory, Brigid remains what she has always been, a guardian of life's turning points.